Good evening, true crimers. Welcome back to Jody's ASMR All True Crime. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to light a candle just for my own peace of mind. And I guess I didn't cut the wick off enough. This is true crime. It is of a sensitive nature. You need to be careful who watches it in your household. People under the age of 14 should probably not be watching this. But I understand there are different levels of comprehension in children. So it's your decision. Even then, if you have triggers, and there are a lot of people out there, and this is just a general warning, it is not written in stone. But if you have a trigger to a disappearing child, a child abuse, or suicide, or anything like that, whenever you're listening to true crime, you may run across that, and it could trigger something that is not healthy for you. Make sure that whatever you listen to, you can process appropriately and effectively for your psyche. It is very important. That's why I like to add the fun things during the day. I'll throw in your days, whoever has a birthday today, happy birthday, December 21st. The day of the Enigma, I threw that in today, and I'm going to do a little trigger video after this, so I like to throw those things in too, and of course my daughter and I, to actually lighten up the mood, bring some positivity to the website. But I do love true crime. I love it, I love it, I love it, I love getting it out there. I love understanding it, dissecting it. As I've said many times, I was an investigator and absolutely found it fascinating. So, that's what I probably should have continued with. But, here I am. So, this is what happened. So she writes her note to her fiance that she'll be right back. She's talking to her brother's girlfriend, her son's girlfriend. Take that back. She's so excited, she goes to a nearby store and never returns. Now she has 3 children. She's very close with her son. And at first, when her fiance returned home to find her absent, he thought nothing of it. He didn't think that, who would? Nobody would. Believe me, I can spend, if I go out, I'm going out for a while because I don't really like to leave the house. I can see that. Nothing suspicious there. But the hours started to pass, and what happens is people started growing concerned. He started growing concerned. I'm sure the rest of her family started growing concerned. Tracking her cell phone using the GPS, Mike Tibbetts found Deanne's vehicle parked in a rough part of town across the street from a concert venue. Well, this is not the store, obviously. To his surprise, when he called Deanne's phone, he could hear it ring inside. Of course, this is going to set off alarm bells because nobody goes anywhere nowadays. I don't care, especially if you have children, without your phone. You're not going to go running to a concert, especially park your car in a bad location, decide, I'm just going to leave my phone in the car, I'll be back in a minute. Drug abuse wasn't really mentioned here, so why would she be in a bad part of town hunting drugs? She never did. Deanne's family and the Spokane Police Department were involved. So Deanne goes missing in actually a highway that leads to the famous highway where there's been many people that have been abducted. This investigation would raise many questions about Deanna's state of mind at the time of her disappearance and the several individuals seen in her company, one of whom later was found using Deanna's credit card. These sightings of Deanna would be the last, and according to the stories, of the last people seen with her. Deanna was left on a hillside just 300 yards from her home. The story just wasn't making sense. This makes no sense whatsoever. If I was an investigator, I'd be going, okay, rewind. So basically, she got in a car with you, drove with you, you took her credit card, you were using her credit card because you're her friend, you leave her car in a really bad part of town when she's just supposed to go to the store. Come again. I mean, literally, that's what I would be thinking as a detective. I would not be thinking these people are telling me the truth. What happened to Deanne Hastings? Did she find herself once again suffering from a mental health issue which disoriented her, or did someone take her advantage of the young mother and now is concealing the terrible truth? Well, let me tell you something about antidepressants, and maybe some people don't realize this when they write this kind of stuff. Deanna's not gonna leave the house super excited, super happy, go to her class, nothing's out of the ordinary, her life is going great, and then walks out of the house to go to the store, and all of a sudden her medication doesn't work. It doesn't happen like that. Medication, especially for antidepressants and, psychoactive or any kind of medication that would help control the bipolar disorder, would take at least 3 days to wear off. So I don't buy the story of she's off on a high, or I just don't buy it, because later in the day she was fine. That means her medication was working. It doesn't just go away like that. Sorry. So that to me is a huge red flag. What are these people? Who are these people? Why would they use her credit card if they were her friends? Okay. A Caucasian female, brown hair, brown eyes she had. Some agency referred to Hastings as Deanne Grider. Her ears are pierced. She may dye her hair. She liked to dye her hair. Her natural color is brown, but she has also colored it blonde and black. Hastings has the following tattoos. Thor's hammer and Vikings runes on her neck, a tribal design on her upper back, a large design of a flower, and the names of Brock, Brooklyn, and Hayden on her abdomen, which are her 3 children, okay? The sun and the moon and the stars on her lower back. Photos of some of the tattoos are posted with this case summary. So, I'm not going to put them in. I'm going to put them in either at the end or in the beginning. So, I will post them though, so you will know if you do see her somewhere out and about, that if you see these tattoos, that you know, hey, this might be this girl, even if her hair is green, purple, whatever. As seen at the Lata Trading Company store off Highway 195 in Spokane, Washington, on November 3rd, 2015. She left a note saying she was going for a short errand, but never returned home and was never heard or seen from again. Well, let's look up the Lata Trading Company, because it kind of sounds like a grocery store, to be honest with you. I mean, it's like Joe's Trading Company, or so this is like Trader Joe's Trading Company, okay? It's Lata's yokes Fresh Market. It is located at 4235 Cheney Spokane Road. Now, her car was seen in a rough part of town, but it doesn't really say which rough part of town. I actually could map quest it for you right now, because I just find this very strange, and it really bothers me when automatically, oh, she had a mental condition, she must have run away from her whole life. Well, she was 35, why now did she do it then? Why all of a sudden she's going to the grocery store and decides, this isn't the life for me. It's perfect. Had a great day. Have a great fiance. I'm out of here. Does that make any sense? Come on. Let's think with our heads here. So she left a note, I'll be right back. A few days after her disappearance, her boyfriend found her car in downtown Spokane, crossing away from anything. Leave her purse and her phone. I don't care who you are. As us women know, we don't go even to the bathroom without our purse. At least I don't, because I forget it. She left all of her belongings. Now, us women also know that we don't leave our makeup, we don't leave our lip gloss, we don't leave our compacts anywhere. They come with us, our tampons, whatever it is. As women, we have more things that we need to bring along. It's different. Like, my dad will even leave his wallet at home. So if he would disappeared and said, oh, his wallet was at his house, I wouldn't be first stressed out, because he's a guy. He's like, I have a car full of gas. I've got some cash maybe in my pocket. I'm just gonna run into the store, wherever, go grab my granddaughter or whatever. So he may leave his wallet at home, but a woman will never leave her purse. Now, if his keys were left there, then that would definitely indicate an issue. So, she just started at this Glendale Beauty Academy, attended her first day of classes, was so excited, last seen. But she was never showed up for the second day. That just confuses me. It really does. It bothers me. Her family stated that at the time of her disappearance, she was happy. She was about to get married. After Hastings was last seen, Randy Riley was arrested and charged with possession of stolen property and identity theft. He used her stolen credit cards. So here's this man, Randy Riley. He used her stolen credit cards. How did he get them? Her purse was left there in the car. He said, this is what he said, he had not been involved, of course, in her disappearance. He said he encountered her while she was walking in South Inland Empire Way. He stated she was very drunk and belligerent. Okay, wait, time. So you're telling me that she goes home, talks to her son's girlfriend, and then says, I'm gonna run to the store, and then in between she decides to go to the bar and get belligerently drunk. Does that make sense to any of us? Does that happen? Maybe, but I don't think she was a drunk. It doesn't say anywhere that she was a drunk, that maybe if she was off her medication. But like I said, it takes 3 or 4 days for the medication to even wear off. And apparently it had been working because she was doing great. So put all these things together in your mind as you're listening to this. He said that she was drunk and belligerent. They spent a few hours together before he left her standing on the roadside. What man leaves a woman standing on the roadside? Seriously? Have you seen a picture of this girl? I mean, she's this tiny little thing. You're just gonna leave her on the side of the road. I don't know. I mean, where's her fiance? cheerful. Okay, here's the. Now I want to go to her early life. Like, let's go back to the beginning, okay? So, before all this, their investigation ID does a good job. Disappeared the long way home paints a vivid picture of the mysterious disappearance. One of my favorite shows. Of course, I love ID. So, it paints a vivid picture of the mysterious disappearance and tries to find an answer to the numerous questions that were raised in the wake of the terrible event. So let's dig deeper into the case and find. She may have isolated herself because she felt overwhelmed and she just needed to be alone. But she always responded to texts and calls from her family because she loved her children. She loved her little boys. You know, while in college, Deanne got pregnant with her first child, Hayden. Although she said the child's father decided to raise the child, Deanna's diagnosis did not allow them to remain together for long, which is normal. Deanna then moved to Texas and got married and had two children. Okay. Children, but her marriage broke down after 9 years. Right. By November 15th, Deanna had moved to Spokane, Washington. She was quite excited to start her studies at cosmetology school and got engaged to Mike Tibbetts. Just for 4 months prior to her disappearance. With her life finally looking up, her sudden disappearance is a shock. It is a shock. That's not normal. This is not a normal chain of events for somebody who is happy, starting a new life, on her medication. Even off her medication, she was still, things were going her way. And even off her medication before, in the past, the MO was to just isolate herself but respond to their texts and calls. But none of that. She didn't even bring her purse. Somebody had taken her. I'm sorry, that's what I think. That is my personal opinion. So after her first days of cosmetology school, before leaving a note for her fiance, she went to the following morning. The cosmetology school reported that Deanne hadn't turned up for her classes. And she never returned anybody's phone call. That's the biggest thing to me. That's that one piece of evidence that really sits with me and just eats at me. The fact that in the many years she had been on this planet and suffered with the same disease, and her children weren't babies, so this was not something new that they were dealing with. There's no way she would have just disappeared, left her, and just fallen off the face of the earth. Everything was going too good. I'm sorry. That's what I think. So, but the thing is, shortly after, Mike received a message about Deanna's credit card being used at a grocery store in Cheney, Washington. But by the time Mike reached the place, his fiance was nowhere to be seen. Now, why in the hell didn't he call the police? If he thought that she had been missing, which obviously I would immediately have thought my daughter, my fiance, my husband, my wife, whatever, was missing, if her purse, her phone, everything was still in the car, and her car is parked in a very bizarre, like she had been abducted. That's what it looks like. I would definitely not run to that, try to get there and see if I couldn't catch the perpetrator myself. I would definitely call the police. But why didn't he? That also doesn't sit well. So when Mike finally was able to see the CCD footage from the grocery store 2 days later, he noticed Deanne acting quite erratically, probably scared people always say, yeah, sure, she was drugged. Well, it's happened to me. And luckily I was with a friend and I noticed it right away. I did not feel good, but I had said no to a guy about dancing and it pissed him off to the point of where, I had gotten my drink from the bar. Nobody touched it except for the bartender. But then like 4 or 5 guys started to block out my friend and I immediately felt this weird because I hadn't eaten anything. I was like, this is not alcohol, this is something else. And I said, you drugged me. And I looked at them all and they're just like, you're crazy. I'm like, I don't care if you think I'm crazy or not. By the time I got home, I was almost completely passed out. And my friend thought I was crazy until, she got me home and I was completely drugged. So if I had stayed, it was at a hotel, it was at a golfing event, they could have easily taken me, killed me, and nobody would ever known. Or they wouldn't have thought anybody would have known. I'm from here, so, But it does happen, and, she could have had, those bars that they have at those grocery stores where you get juices or coffees. Maybe she had gotten one of those and, turned away for a second, and somebody drugged her. She was a beautiful girl. You never know. You really don't. I tell my daughter this all the time. She goes, yeah, I know. But things have happened like that to me. And luckily, I have been street smart enough to realize I don't care what the hell anybody thinks. I'm getting out of there. And I'm going to a safe place. Period. I'm not going to see how it plays out. I don't care if I was wrong. At least I was home safe. I had a daughter to take care of. So, when I see this is not far from the truth because it has happened to me. So, when I read this, I think absolutely this could have happened. The only difference between she and I is that I could tell immediately, and if I were alone, I would have told somebody to call 911 that I had been drugged. I could feel it. So she was not known to be a drug addict or user. So that too tells me that if she's telling somebody that, hey, I was kidnapped and I've been drugged, and she was acting completely normal before then that's what happened. We can't just start, people are using your credit cards. That happens all the time. I mean, really, maybe she drove up when she went to the store. Maybe she got a coffee or a juice, or maybe she got money first and then went in and got a juice. And this person had seen her. Maybe she left her. You get a receipt. Maybe she left a receipt and it tells her balance. Maybe that person had been kind of honing in on somebody who had a little bit of money and saw her sneezy target. She was tiny, she was by herself, and saw her go, oh, she went to the juice bar or the coffee bar. You know how easy it is to slip somebody something, and they feel totally fine when they walk at the store, and by the time they are in their car and turning it on, they are blasted, and it's not hard to apprehend or kidnap somebody that is that messed up. And she probably had no idea. Why is she spending a few hours with somebody she doesn't know and she's running to the store? Again, tells me she was drugged. But why only a few hours? If she liked this guy or had been in a relationship with this guy, she would have stayed with him for a while. Then he leaves her on the side of the road. Okay. I mean, none of this sounds plausible at all. Later, Randy found quote unquote, okay, Deanna's coat, her driver's license, and credit cards in the same place where they initially met, and decided to use them. I'm sorry. convince him without drugging him to give me all his money, then kind of go pull out money from a bunch of different places. Then I take his wallet, his keys, whatever he has on him, his coat, his jacket too, okay? So it's Spokane, Washington. It's pretty chilly, especially in November. And then I take it back to where I met him. Does any of that sound plausible? No. He also admitted, but he doesn't say how they met. They met, like, mutually met. He just said he also admitted to being the one who discarded the license. Unfortunately, Randy's story could never be corroborated. Of course he couldn't, because it was a lie, and the police met a dead end. But investigators are not stupid. And that was the last lead authorities had, and the case slowly lost traction. Well, god damn it, why didn't they pursue him? Although it is considered an active investigation, the police have run out of leads to follow. However, Deanna's family keeps her alive in their memories and still hopes for a safe return. Well, I'm sorry, but what I just read has got a ton of information in it. His fingerprints, his DNA, what? I would just harass this guy. He knows something. He's not her. There's no way she would have just met somebody. And I'm sorry, I just don't believe that. And he's changing his story, but they'd never bring him back into the situation. I don't get that. You know, innocent people have been interrogated more than this guy. That pisses me off. Really does. It really just. I mean, this makes no sense. Does this make sense to anybody? Is it just me? Am I just... There's my paint on my shoulder. Am I asleep? Am I crazy? Because it feels like the police just kind of just busy and... Okay, they immediately hear mental illness and boom. It's like you don't mean anything. And that is not the case. If police knew anything, and I think they should be trained in mental illness. They should have a degree or 2 years at least in, the psychology of the human brain, about all these disorders that they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, whether it's homeless people, whether it's people that they have, missing people, whether that they are, have hurt somebody or going to hurt somebody. People, I think more education is needed in this area, because it's just so important. Really is. I can't express this enough, that you have to understand the mind of somebody before you can even begin to understand what they were planning on doing. Like, how about this Randy? Why didn't they interview anybody who knew him? I mean, I couldn't find anything that, about him. Like, why not? Where's Deanna's son? Okay, that's great, but what the hell? Where is Randy? Who is this guy? I mean, it's basically a guy who picked her up, used her credit cards, dropped her on a hillside 300 feet from her house, and then took all her stuff away from her, even her jacket, and took it back to where he found her, or he met her, at this, Trader Joe's market. They make it sound like this place was in a bad part of town. It's like a Trader Joe's market going to Greenwise, or to, what about this guy? What about her fiance? Did they know each other? Did anybody look into that? Why isn't there more information? I feel like they just looked at this for 20 minutes, said, it's a Friday, I'm kinda hungry. Bill, you hungry? Yeah, okay, let's go. Honestly, that's what I feel like. And then they typed up a report and never really looked at it again, which is sad. It's sad for the family, and it's sad for the people involved. I'm gonna look at this even further, because I do want to know who this guy was, Randy Riley. So where is Deanna's son now? Deanna's son, Hayden, was quite close to his mother, who shared an intimate bond, and Deanna loved being there for each of his achievements. So she's not just gonna run away. I'm sorry. Hayden was just 17 when his mother vanished and was almost about to graduate high school. She would have never missed that either. When his mother vanished, he had planned on joining the military. Incidentally, he was also the recipient of the last text Deanna ever sent out. The text where Deanna talked about her first day in school and said she hoped her son was proud of her, reaffirmed her incredible bond she had shared with Hayden. So at present, Hayden is married to Melanie Green, although he prefers leading a private life and regards his privacy and his personal life. He is also quite close to her mother, his grandmother, who has been his support ever since this terrible incident. However, with Hayden preferring to keep his life under wraps, his present whereabouts remain unclear, which isn't important. How he has made significant strides in his life despite the heartbreaking tragedy, and we hope success never eludes him in the future. Something is not... I'm sorry. When I read this, I'm like... Okay, I've got a couple things here that I'd like to say. Now... Alright, so... It's not adding up. Credit cards are being used by this guy. This is he, Mike. I'm gonna look him up right now. This final time she had been out of touch with all of her friends and family for 6 days. A mostly redacted copy of June 12, 2015 incident report I obtained that was initiated by Deanne's eldest son, Hayden, states the following. Hayden Green called Crime Check on June 12, 2015 at 20:38 hours to report that he hadn't heard from his mom, Deanne Hastings, since 6/19/15. Deanna has checked with other friends and family, and no one has heard from her, not even her live-in boyfriend, Mike Tibbetts. That case was closed when Deanna returned home on June 15, 2015. Apparently, no search was conducted. So, Mike Tibbetts was Deanna's live-in boyfriend when she went missing in June, but apparently Mike was not concerned as he was in November. Deanna and Mike became engaged around 2 months following her return from that episode and around 2 months before she disappeared. So did this change in the relationship affect Mike's actions in November? In this ID disappearance interview, Mike Devitt says in her past she would leave for a couple of days or different times like that. She would respond though with this Deanna, with texts and stuff. Mike had been through this with Deanna before. Mike does know where Deanna went during the time she disappeared. According to Deanna's artist friend, many times she would run to him whenever he was living, or he would come to where she was, everywhere he was living, or not that he was living, where he was living, or come to where she was. And sometimes she would hide from the world in a hotel. Apparently, some of the times, like this, Deanna wandered the streets and made friends with strangers. Okay, this time, something kept Deanna from ever coming back. The fact that, her cell phone, her purse, everything, her makeup, everything, her coat was all brought back to the scene. After this guy left her on the side of the road, she was known to make friends when she would disappear, it would be more of like they would kind of know she was disappearing. Maybe she was kind of going downhill or whatever. Deanna clearly had a difficult time getting the right dose or combination of medications. Although her brother Carson and Mike Tibbetts referred to the insurance and the insurance company in their ID interviews, the fact that Deanna was on Medicaid due to her low income and other factors. One of the credit cards a person of interest in this case, Randy Riley, was caught using of Deanna's was not a credit card according to police, but rather her EBT food stamp. That is by a federal offense. Was caught, which is probably why he was arrested. And that was at a Winco grocery store, but how did he get it? Perhaps they did not wish to cause shame to Deanne. The only shame is that Deanne was denied her medication, but Mike Tibbetts stated in his interview with ID that he had offered to pay cash for Deanne's medication so she could have the preferred one, and Deanne was told by her caseworker if they did that, Deanne would be dropped from insurance coverage. No one is dropped from private insurance coverage for not using their benefits and paying cash instead. That is absolutely true. When you go to the pharmacy to pick up a prescription, you'll be charged the full price in cash unless you present an insurance card, and nobody cares because you're paying to have the insurance benefits whether you use it or not. And when you don't use it, that is money the insurance company does not have to reimburse the pharmacy. So I don't believe that for a second. It is Medicaid's recipients who have demonstrate financial need. Obviously, this is a terrible shame for anyone would deny Deanna the particular medication her physician thought she needed. It may help some people deflect their own guilt and responsibility to spread blame around or feel validated in making political hay of this case. But what is important is finding Deanne. That's exactly what I was saying. There is something else. She did not run away and leave for good. Deanne, she attends her first day. She's happy. She's going. Then all of a sudden she's going to like a grocery store and disappears forever. I don't know. I don't know if her fiance knew this guy. I don't know. Deanne spent the later part of the evening with her now daughter-in-law Melanie Green, doing her nails and discussing the relationships with the men in their lives as they frequently did. 9:30 p.m. Melanie Green goes home after spending the evening with Deanne. Okay, so after spending the evening with Deanne, doing nails and talking about the relationships, Deanne responded to Melanie's text sometime between 9:30 and 10 when Melanie arrived home. Deanna's last message to Melanie Green, also goes by Dill, says, "Love you, see you soon." So there's no report of her going to the grocery store. I don't know why. See, this is an account from the Disappearance from ID of what exactly happened. So now people are kind of changing their stories. This is interesting. Because remember before, in the initial reports, she told her son's girlfriend that, okay, I'm going to the store, I'll be back. So at 10 p.m., Deanna's last reported use of her cell phone is a text to her son Hayden, telling him that she went to school that day and that she hopes he is proud of her. 10 to 10:15 p.m., Deanna possibly executes a plan to leave the home. She shares with her fiancé Mike Tibbetts by distracting him with a handwritten note and going to the store. While she made her way to a downtown nightclub, if true, then for reasons known only to her, Deanne chooses to execute this plan instead of waiting for Mike to return home just a few minutes later and invite him to go with her to the club, or to tell Mike the truth about where she was going. 10:15 to 10:30. So basically have said, hey babe, this is what I would have said. Hey babe, I had a great day. I'm just gonna run to the store. I'm so excited, especially if she was that excited. I would be like dying, like bursting at the seams to tell anybody, and probably had written it down and be just like, wah. So I don't necessarily believe that that's an odd thing to do. If Deanna actually meant to let Mike know that she was at the store in case he found the empty house empty when he came home, or he wanted anything from the store, she would have texted him. Would she have texted him that? Now that's a good point. I don't know. I have to think about that. Before she allegedly picked up a pen and wrote a note for Mike Tibbetts that he has never allowed police to see. And that was my next question. Was there ever a note produced? No. So maybe he did text her. Or maybe that was his friend that abducted her. I don't know. There are a lot of plausible endings here. Mike maintains that the handwritten note is the last thing Deanna ever wrote to him, and that is why he cannot part with it. So, okay, he says the handwritten note is the last thing that Deanna ever wrote to him, so apparently this to me is telling me that that is commonplace, that she did write him notes instead of texts, more like a personal thing. You know, you text your family, you text your friends, but, you know, when you're waiting for your baby to get home or your honey, then usually you like to leave him a little note. It's more personal. I can see that she would write him a note instead of text him. That makes complete sense. But because he says Deanna ever wrote to him, so she had obviously written to him before. Even though he has known that the note was a complete lie by the fourth day that Deanna was missing at the latest. Why? I mean, how do they know that it was a lie? I don't understand. Mike's refusal to ever turn over the alleged note or Deanna's cell phone in the early days and weeks of the investigation into her disappearance. Mike's actions are not those of a man who really wants to find out what happened to Deanna. Mike's memories of the note seem to vary slightly in this interview. Published 9 days after Deanna went missing, Mike says, there was a note that said, ran to store, just got done doing girls' nails. Had a great day. Totally plausible. Totally believable. The article further states, it is easy to memorize a simple note, especially when it's the last time you've heard from the one you love, except Mike doesn't memorize Deanna's notes. He paraphrases it each time he repeats it to police. By February 2016, Mike seems to be remembering the night Deanna left home differently than he reported to police. The last thing I heard come out of her mouth was, I love you, he said. She went to the store that night, and I haven't seen her since, so now he heard her. So he didn't get a note from her. Now he's talking to her either at the house or via the phone. No mention of any note. The note matters because if it ever existed, it would support Mike's version of the evening, that nothing at all was amiss between himself and Deanna, and that whatever happened to cause Deanna to leave the house that night had nothing to do with Mike because it happened before he got home. Exactly. So 11:30 p.m., Mike gets concerned that Deanna has not come home from the store because it's 5 minutes away. Why wasn't he concerned about, 20 minutes ago if it's only 5 minutes away? I mean, because you'd be texting the whole time, right? Hey, babe, just kind of getting word, are you alright? It's nighttime. It is almost 11 o'clock at night. You want me to come meet you at the store? I mean, that would be my dad, my boyfriend, Hauser's Market. Out of concern, Mike said he drove to that store. Mike reports that the store was closed. Oh, yeah, it's 11:30 at night. He returns home. Why does he drive to the store instead of texting, then calling Deanna's phone? Didn't I just say that? Didn't Mike do those things first and then drive to the store? No, he didn't, because none of it, the texts were never found. He does not report doing so, and it is never found that he did. This is the nearest market to their house. Most people know what time the nearest market to their house closes, and damn well she knew that it closed before 11. Did Mike really think he would find Deanna at the closed market rather than assume she must be making a stop since someplace else by then that was open later? Deanna could have gone to Walgreens that was open late, or picking up a frozen fast food or pizza. It is interesting that within an hour Mike is already out on the street looking for Deanna on this night. Instead of texting her or just like, hey babe, where are you? Why is he looking for her unless he knew that she really wasn't there? Just a thought. So, Wednesday, November 4th, 2015, 2:30 to 3 a.m. Kinda late. Mike tracks Deanna's phone to the parking lot at 919 Sprague Avenue in downtown Spokane, which is next to the Knitting Factory, a music venue just 6 blocks from the cosmetology. Okay, I did not know that that was a knitting factory was also the concert hall. So, I'm sorry, pardon me. So that was the same place earlier. I just wanted to make that clear. So Deanna attended the morning a music event just 6 blocks from. Okay, now this is interesting. So this knitting factory or music venue was just 6 blocks from the cosmetology school Deanna attended the morning before. So anybody could have seen her leave, and if Mike was able to trace Deanna's phone using location services, then he also had access to and surely would have looked at her phone usage online to see who was communicating with her besides him, because he found her phone, right? Found her phone in the car. Mike could have easily been able to see their texts. He saw their text to her son and his girlfriend's number in the minutes before he came home. Nonetheless, Mike never actually contacts either one of them to then himself to ask what Deanna might have said about what she was planning to do that night, or tell them that she was missing. Mike decides to wait by Deanna's car for the rest of the night. This is an interesting choice considering that the temperature was below freezing that night. Deanna had not been robbed because Mike found her purse and her cell phone secured inside the car. But here's the thing, her jacket wasn't in there because Mike Riley brought it back. Anyway, it seems reasonable to assume that Deanna had gone to the club next door and left her purse in the car. No. That is not reasonable. So she could dance. No. You put it in the trunk and you take your money with you and your license. How the hell is she gonna get into the club without her license and out with her cell phone? No. I don't believe that. That is not plausible. So even if Deanna had consumed alcohol, it would be reasonable for her to have gotten a ride home or taken a cab. Had she ever done that before? Was she known to do that? It doesn't say she was. So why all of a sudden this night she decided to live it up and just get drunk and hammered and belligerent? Was this normal behavior? That's what I want to know. Because people don't just change their mode of action overnight. If Deanna, so Mike's choices seem to prioritize seeing who Deanna might be seen with when she returned to her car. Mike claimed that he stayed with Deanna's car all night in the freezing cold because he wanted to make sure her car did not get broken into. Well, that's most he just take her purse? He gets into the car, but he doesn't take her purse. He just stands there in the freezing cold. Does any of this make you hot in downtown Spokane with her purse and phone inside for 4 more nights, beginning on Wednesday? What? Okay, it just said that he saw her cell phone secured inside the car. But why wouldn't he break into the car or call AAA 4 more nights? We know that Deanne Hastings met a grocery store employee, what is now called Yoke Fresh Market on Spokane Cheney Road, known as Latham Trading Company at the time, and that Deanna spent the night with that grocery store employee. According to the GSE information, he met Deanna in front of the knitting factory and they went off to party together for the night. In the morning, the GSE took Deanna in his car to the grocery store where he worked to purchase cigarettes. The GSE says that he got back to his car. Deanna was gone, but she had left her keys behind. He drove around the shopping center, did not see Deanna, and left. Deanna was just 2 miles from home then and would end up walking most of the 2 miles in the direction of her home later that afternoon. This is making sense. 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. Mike calls Glen Dow Academy to see whether Deanna has shown up for a second day of classes. Obviously, she had not. So he starts making missing persons flyers right away, Okay, so... Alright, so the school owner offered to start making missing persons flyers right away instead of minding their own business over an adult staying out all night. Mike says that he then began to distribute the missing persons flyer all over downtown Spokane. Deanna had been missing less than 12 hours at that point. Maybe it was reasonable for Mike to call Deanna's new school and let the administrators know that she had been out all night because Mike was genuinely worried about Deanna's well-being. On the other hand, Mike does not say that he tried calling any hospitals or jails, which would seem even more plausible. But who knows? Deanna has returned there, and mostly important, Mike does not call. So he does not try to call her phone because he knows it's in the car. But then when he leaves the car, he doesn't know that she went back to it. So why doesn't he keep calling? He just calls her school, says that my girlfriend's missing. Haven't called the police station, haven't called the police, haven't called the hospitals, but I'm gonna call you. And then these people start making missing flyers. Okay, I'm sorry, this is way out there. So Mike does not go to work for the first 24 hours of Deanna's disappearance. This is how alarmed he is by her gone overnight. This time, it is not clear how Mike accounts for his time and whereabouts during those first 24 hours of Deanna's disappearance, other than he alternately went around the city with missing persons flyers, waited around her car, and drove the streets looking for Deanne every day after Wednesday. Mike goes back to work. Well, when in hell does he call the police? 12:30 p.m. Officer David Zinkgraf responds to numerous calls for a welfare check requested by strangers in the shopping center parking lot of what now is Yoke's Fresh Market. So her boyfriend never even called the cops. It was strangers. These witnesses reported a disoriented and possibly intoxicated adult woman who had entered a salon and called a woman working there mommy, who was now laying on the ground and claiming to witness that she may have been drugged, kidnapped, and beaten. What the hell? Deanna would not speak to the EMT or police when they arrived. So she was seen again, nor would she give anyone her name or say where she had lived, although she did tell the ladies attempting to intervene on her behalf that she did not want to go home. But that is bizarre. So when Deanna will not repeat any of the claims about being drugged or beaten to police, does not appear beaten, refuses to give her name, and then walks away from Officer Zinkgraf. Officer Zinkgraf continued to observe Deanna for another 20 minutes and then reluctantly leaves. Deanna has civil rights, and Officer Zinkgraf has an entire city to look at was the problem. She was just a mental case that they didn't want to deal with. That's what honestly, I do think that she was kind of classified that way. Deanne is not required to identify herself to police when she is not suspected of a crime. But why isn't her boyfriend reporting her missing? It has now been 4 or 5 days. Strangers are reporting her missing. People are seeing her lying in and beaten. And okay, the account of the employees say that she was disoriented, drugged, said she was beaten, looked like beaten enough to call the cops. They didn't say she looked crazy. She said she looked disoriented and drugged and like she needed help, but apparently was afraid to go home. That's what it says right here. And who is she afraid to go home to? At this point, she does not have her purse. And it's funny how Mike, her fiance, kind of almost stalked her car as if making sure she did not get her cell phone, did not get her purse, could not get those things she needed. Police cannot detain Deanne for telling wild stories to strangers, nor apparently even for public intoxication, because his officers in Graf explained the ID disappeared episode. Spokane does not have a law prohibiting public intoxication. There is also no law in Washington that allows authorities to remand citizens for psychiatric evaluation because of statements by strangers. Really? Civil commitment requires family members to swear out an affidavit. I guess like the Baker Act, that they observed their family member being a threat to themselves or others. Yes, it is tragically unfortunate that Deanne could not be intervened upon by police and EMT services on the day she disappeared, but hopefully everybody can stop asking how they could have. But hopefully everyone can stop asking how they could have just let Deanne be on her way, because the question has been asked and answered. Bullshit! If you see somebody drugged, call 911, but call and get family members. She did not want to go home. She was afraid to go home. Why? Why was this Mike, her fiance, stalking her car in the middle of a freezing cold night and then left? Was only off work for 24 hours and then left her car there for 4 days. 4 days, okay. He left her car there for 4 days, went back to work. No problem. Then these people find her. She walks in disoriented, drugged, like she had been kept hostage somewhere. And then she's freaking out because where else, is she gonna call? I guess she was so afraid of something. It doesn't seem like a manic episode. I've known a lot of people with bipolar, and this does not coincide with symptoms. I mean, maybe schizophrenia, but she didn't have schizophrenia. 12:30 p.m. and officers in Graf's continued observation of Deanne after the initial contact. Deanne enters the grocery store where she uses her debit card to purchase energy drinks, string cheese, birthday candles, cigarettes, and vodka. Mike, who has been out distributing missing person flyers and are waiting by Deanne's car, says that he received an alert on his phone that Deanne's card was used at the grocery store where the GSE works. Did Mike have alerts set on the card for every transaction Deanne made, like parents do when they give their teenager a credit card? Mike takes the alert not as a notice of potential threat that Deanne is well and making a purchase. This is why Mike does not rush to the store. Is he not concerned about who the hell is purchasing something then? This isn't making sense. He means to see who she is with and confront her. So apparently there's some aggression in him. This is why, even though Mike apparently believes that Deanna is well and making a purchase, he is about to confront her. Mike says he believed Deanne would come back to her vehicle and his priority isn't to get warm or to go get some sleep. It's still to see who Deanna's with and confront her. So he's very jealous that and James on their way to a storage unit. Randy Riley has rented that it is within 2 blocks of the grocery store where Deanna has just made her purchases. According to both Randy Riley and James, they hung out with Deanna for a few hours. Storage facility surveillance shows the 3 of them smiling and interacting in a friendly manner. The 2 men are on bicycles. Neither of the men appears to have access to any vehicles of their own with which to move personal belongings. But yet, they're at a storage locker, let alone a body. Deanna's brother Carson confirms this in the Vanished podcast, and none of the trio seem to make an effort to make use of Deanna's vehicle. What is going on here? 1:30 p.m. Storage surveillance shows Randy Riley and Deanne and James leaving the storage facility, so she's still alive at this point. 2:30 p.m. Information received by the police, November 25th, 2015. She's still alive. 3 weeks after Deanna disappeared and after Randy Riley's name was released to the media. Randy Riley's landlord, who was in the process of evicting him, now claims that she remembers seeing Deanna with Randy Riley and another man on Wednesday, November 4th, near where he claims that he left her and that Deanna was sitting or lying on the ground again. Another woman who lived near Inland Empire Way believes that she saw Deanna walking with Randy Riley and James on IE Way and lying on the ground that day. The witness claims she was concerned enough to stop and ask Deanna if she was okay since she was lying on the ground. Deanna told this witness that she was just upset because she was going through a divorce, and she seemed in control enough of herself that this neighbor moved on. Randy Riley does not deny that he was with Deanna on that day she was seen, nor deny that he is the last person willing to admit to have seen her. 2:30 to 4 o'clock p.m. A few hours after Mike learns Deanna used her card at the grocery store, he finally decides to leave Deanna's car downtown and go to that store with Deanna's missing persons flyer in hand. Then Mike has his first encounter with the GSE in the parking lot outside of the store. The GSE says Deanna looked familiar, but that it's probably not the same girl. It is possible Deanna did not look exactly like her photos on the night she left because she was disheveled, but it is also possible that the GSE did not want to immediately admit to a frantic man with a missing persons flyer that his fiancée, who did not appear missing when he spent the night with her. The GSE may have been wary, for good reason, of becoming involved in what appeared to be a domestic situation. Quote, she said I had to wait and speak with the manager there, so I'll call the next day, Thursday, and then he said I could come in that Saturday and look through it, unquote. Mike does not report taking the missing person flyer to the surrounding businesses in the shopping center where the grocery store was located, but maybe he did. It would have made sense for him to do so since he claims he was papering downtown Spokane with the flyers, and the shopping centers was now Deanne's most likely last known location. If Mike had contacted the surrounding businesses to leave flyers, he would have been told about Deanne being at the salons calling people mommy, and the police and the EMTs had been dispatched for the women on the flyer. Mike would have been told that Deanne was not alone and on foot. He would have immediately searched the surrounding neighborhood for Deanne. So, at this point on Wednesday afternoon, after 2:30 p.m., Mike puts himself at the grocery store where Deanne made her last purchases. He is less than 2 miles from where Randy Riley and James claim to have parted ways with Deanne, and approximately 1,000 feet from his home with Deanne. A Google map search shows that there are few streets in that area. The time period from Wednesday afternoon into Thursday deserves a microscope on it, because this is the person who, according to his own information, was devoting himself to nothing missing. So, finally, he reports her missing to police on Thursday morning. He then calls the manager of the grocery store where Deanna's debit card was last used. But here's the thing, don't you think that the police would have told him about the situation about her being on the ground and the whole situation downtown? I mean, he's in this little area. Her car's parked right outside where she's getting her nails done. She comes in, she tells about the situation. She's obviously disheveled and out of it. But the police don't say, oh yeah, there was a missing person, or there was a person that the police were called out to. So, I don't know. This is just not adding up. So he then calls the manager of the grocery store on November 5th that her card was last used. In the ID Disappeared episode, Mike calmly tells us that the grocery store manager told him over the phone on Thursday that he could come in 2 days later to look through the video. Mike presses neither the manager or the store nor the police to review the video surveillance. Immediately, that would either confirm Deanna was using her own debit card or point to a suspect in her disappearance. There is apparently none of the urgency that Mike felt when contacting Deanne's school the morning before. See, and this is where I think that it was jealousy, that he just wanted to catch her in the act and just to confront her and be right. Because I don't think there was any love or care about really where she was. Or that's the first thing I would want to know, right? Wouldn't you? Like, I want to see the first video surveillance. Who was with her? Was she alive? Was she okay? Was she really acting as erratic as everybody was saying? Was she using her own card? Was this Riley using her card? You know, there's so many accounts that next from he never calls her son, which I find it very strange, and he never calls her Dill or her son's girlfriend, nor does he call Deanne's mother, who lives only an hour away with Deanne's younger children, to ask whether she had heard from Deanne. Instead, Mike goes to the media for help in promoting Deanne's disappearance. Deanne's mother had to learn that her daughter was missing from Deanne's brother, who lived in Texas, who had to learn that his sister was missing when he was called by a friend in Spokane who saw the news report on TV. This makes no sense if Mike was genuinely concerned with locating Deanne on Wednesday and Thursday. Mike tells interviewers that he didn't wish to alarm Deanne's family. Bullshit. I call that bull. That makes no sense that he is admitting to locate Deanne by all of these other alarming means when Deanne was out of the touch with all of her friends and family, including Mike Tibbetts, for what turned out to be 6 days in June, according to the above-referenced police incident report. Mike Tibbetts never did report Deanne missing, but he reported her missing after 2 days. Okay, this makes no sense. Nor did he launch a frantic search contacting media. Her son did, though, and Deanne's teenage son, Hayden, had the sense to contact friends and family before he made such a report to the police. So, protocol. But why is her son not immediately contacted? He was the last person that she texted. This is not making sense for him, I'm sorry. Or this Riley guy, it's kind of like they're in this all together. I mean, Mike is able to view the surveillance videos at the grocery store when Deanne made her purchases. She is alone on the video, but clearly disoriented. As other witnesses describe, Mike does not request police to accompany him to view or take control of a copy of the video, so nobody sees his video but him. But he agrees with what everybody says, of course. So Saturday, November 7th, Mike is able to view the purchases disoriented. November 8th, okay, let's go to the 6 a.m. Mike gets a call from the GSE, who has been following media coverage on Deanne's disappearance. The GSE now says he thinks Deanne is a girl he spent the night with on Tuesday, Wednesday, and he agrees to meet with Mike to answer more questions. 10:30 night she left home. Again, this is telling, since Mike originally felt that securing Deanne's vehicle required him to stay with the vehicle all night in the freezing temperatures. In his ID disappearance appearance, Mike says of his meeting with the grocery store employee, quote, he was not very impressed at all, unquote. It's hard to imagine in what the grocery store employee could have been impressed in this case. What sort of presentation was Mike expecting the GSE to wow him with? 2 years after the fact, Mike still shows seething jealousy, disgust on camera that Deanne went home with this grocery store employee she met on the street outside of a nightclub when he was prepared to make her his wife. In his ID disappearance interview, Mike says, quote, obviously I asked him if he had gotten together with her or anything like that. He said that he didn't, that he had a girlfriend and all those things. I just didn't believe him. He just didn't. I don't know, just something about, especially if I don't think something feels right. So, Randy Riley, December 10th. Randy Riley is arrested for identity theft. Randy Riley admits to using Deanne's debit and credit cards. Randy Riley first states that Deanne gave him the cards to get something to eat. According to Randy Riley's second version of how he obtained Deanne's credit cards on November 5th, he was in a truck belonging to a friend who was helping him move belongings from a nearby apartment, from whence Randy Riley was being evicted to his nearby storage unit where he and James had. Now who is this James? Okay, and the day before, Randy Riley claims that he came across Deanne's coat containing her wallet, or at least whatever credit cards and ID she had taken with her when she left her purse and phone in her vehicle. I don't know, it's just strange. And according to her brother Carson in the Vanish podcast, Randy Riley finds Deanne's coat and shoes and he takes those as well. Randy Riley claims that these items were in the approximate area where he and James had last seen Deanne. In an interview with Randy Riley in jail with local affiliate KHQ, Randy Riley allegedly claims that he disposed of Deanne's coat and shoes and threw her ID out in downtown Spokane to make it appear that she had been somewhere other than the last place he and his associate James claims they saw Deanne near the, quote, the hill. Only 300 or 800 yards from her house. It should have been easy, though, for police to locate the friend with the truck to corroborate the second version of Randy Riley's coming to have the cards, and also whether or not a PIN number was required in order to use the cards. So how did he get that? There is much speculation that because Randy Riley is the last person to have seen Deanne alive, and because he lied at least once, and so did her fiance. Okay, by the way. A criminal background shows Randy Riley has a history of drug use and theft, but not robbery. To support his drug habit, Randy Riley's only violent offenses are 2 domestic violent charges which sounds serious, except those appear to be tied to his loved ones intervening in his drug use. One of the charges involved a girlfriend, and one from 2005 involved Randy's own mother, but this coincides with his use of drugs and drug convictions. As of the time Deanne went missing, 2005, Randy Riley was being evicted from his apartment. Apparently all was forgiven by Randy's mother because she was allowing him to move in with her while he got his feet back under him. That is where police located him with a girlfriend that he said he had. So that was not a lie. So Randy Riley's never been charged with a forcible felony nor any sex crime. Randy Riley seems to be just your average petty criminal. In his interview with Spokane detectives, Randy Riley comes off as not being kind of a dipshit. He comes off as not being kind of a dipshit and a weakling who probably probably sniffs paint, not a sophisticated criminal who anyone really lied about how he obtained Deanne's credit cards. Maybe it was just to avoid a robbery charge, which is a forcible felony, is a very serious offense compared with any on his previous record. So then it just goes and talks about her, like, removing the cards, Deanna's coat. James maintains that he has no idea how Randy Riley came to have had Deanna's credit cards. And he was never came to on video with Randy Riley using credit cards. So, however, the theft and use of cards came to have happened, it does not appear to have any conspiracy between Randy Riley and James. What if Deanna did lose her coat in a struggle with someone else? Maybe who was known to have desperately looking for her all over town. Maybe who had been betrayed by Deanna falling off the wagon and staying out all night. The relationship between Deanne Hastings and Mike Tibbetts. Within a couple of days of meeting her, I knew she was the one. Mike says, within a couple of days of meeting Deanne Hastings, Mike Tibbetts could not possibly have known that being in a committed long-term relationship with her what it might entail. Mike Tibbetts was overwhelmed by Deanna's beauty upon meeting her, and he intended to possess her, and her answer to everything, and be her answer to everything, all her problems. We got along great, Mike says. So anyway, just talks about that they rarely ever fought. Amanda Ladd, Deanna's long best friend, shared text messages with police that shows Deanna had been telling her that she wanted to leave Mike because she is done, and she believed Mike was drugging her. Well, that's interesting. So she's telling her best friend weeks before this ever happens that she feels Mike is drugging her own fiance. So that kind of coincides with the whole thing. Deanna was hearing voices and thought neighbors and ex-boyfriends were breaking into their house, drugging the water supply, and trying to kill her, and even accused Mike of being in on the conspiracy. Like I said, working together. Deanna does not mention the neighbors or ex-boyfriend to Amanda Ladd, only Mike. Okay, so she's telling her best friend that she thinks Mike's drugging her. However, Mike says, oh, well, she's hearing voices, and she's thinking, she's making up all these crazy things. But to her best friend, she doesn't say that. She says, Mike's drugging me. Okay. You tell your best friend everything. We're girls. We're gonna tell our best friends the craziest things. If we think that there's a conspiracy against us, we're gonna break down and tell her. But she didn't say that. She said, Mike's drugging me. That's what I feel. I feel strange. Something is wrong. I think it's fine. It's funny that if you go back and listen to the accounts of Mike saying that they couldn't get her drugs because Medicaid would have taken her off, which was not correct. That's kind of strange. So was he taking her off the wrong drugs and putting her on drugs that he wanted to drug her with? That makes a lot of sense. Deanna's now daughter-in-law, Melanie Green, states in her ID Disappearance interview that although she never witnessed any fights between Deanna and Mike, Deanna would regularly text message her dill using a girl code they had about doing nails for when she needed to talk about the relationship troubles with Mike that she was having. What were the nature of Deanna's issues with Mike that she confided in her dill about? Melanie Green never mentions what wheat bread or white bread. I don't know. That was a code word for something. Mike wants us to believe that even Deanne went missing for 6 days in June and had to be reported missing by the police, but her son, because no one, including Mike, had heard from her for days, her only person who reported her missing to the police was her son. He didn't give a crap then. So why is he out at Shortly before her disappearance in 2015, she contacted me and told me she had to get out of the current relationship because it was unhealthy. She didn't say she's being followed or this conspiracy theory. She didn't even tell him she had been drugged. She had been clean and sober for a long time and really seemed to be turning life around. This is coming from a very good friend. And her best friend says the same thing. And her son's now wife. So January 2016, Randy Riley's friend James, who had walked with Randy Riley and Deanne on the day she disappeared and who was not charged with any crime related to her or used any of her cards, contacted Amanda Ladd via the Missing Deanne Facebook page to say that he wanted to speak with anyone who wanted to speak with him about Deanne and that he would tell them anything they wanted to know. He claims he did not know Randy very well, and James stuck to his same story. Deanne went up the hill to relieve herself. Randy went to check on her for several minutes and then returned alone, and the two men proceeded on their way. According to Deanne's brother Carson account of the phone call, James tells Deanne's brother words to the effect of, "I can't believe she didn't make it home. She was so close to home, she was going to walk up the hill. I can't believe she didn't make it home." James seems genuinely desperate to reassure Deanne's family that whatever happened to Deanne did in fact happen. After he and Riley left her on the hill near the home she shared with Mike Tibbetts. Okay, I'm just going to wrap this up. I know this is a long video, but I want to give all the accounts of what happened because I really do believe that, personally, I believe James, her fiance, because Randy went up to hill to check on her, and James was his friend. I'm sorry. I take it back. Randy and James waited for Deanna to come back down after relieving herself. Now, he seemed very desperate to say, "Hey, Randy and I left, and we left her right by her house where she shared what she shared with Mike." Now, what do you believe is the story? Because I find this very strange. I mean, if you listen to it closely, it doesn't make sense what Mike did. The 6 days she was gone, and then he was all of a sudden freaking out, jealous, and he's still jealous to this day when he talks about it. So about her leaving with this guy. Now, the guy doesn't seem to be a threat. I mean, nobody says he's a threat. And even James says she went to relieve herself, and Randy said she was just gone. Right by her house. You guys, thank you for all your subscribes, your likes, your views. I appreciate everything. I try to make this channel as interesting as possible. I try to give the most detailed account as I possibly can. I try to add some other lighthearted stuff, but this missing persons case just seems like it could be solved. Something isn't right. Somebody, I mean, I think the only person that knows anything, honestly, is Mike. I think he was watching her, like he was hawking that car. I mean, stealthily. He didn't even go home. He was out in the freezing cold. He didn't call AAA. He wanted to confront her. That was his main goal, and the anger and the resentment that he shows every time they talk to him. And it's like, I don't know, I'm telling you, men and women, same thing. I mean, he was stalking her out. It was like the first 6 days the first time she left, 6 days, no big deal. She called her son called her family, then he called the police. This guy never even called her family, never called her son. Nobody, just started making flyers and apparently plastered them all over town, but none of the businesses, there were no flyers anywhere at all. And then the account, once he did call the police, why didn't the police tell them of the person, that fits Deanna's, description. Why didn't they say something to him? Or did he even ask? Did he even really? He never shows the police. He never sits down with the police and watches the video. He just looks at the video and says, oh yeah, she was by herself and she was disoriented, just like they said. But nobody else ever was with him. He never really, it's like these police just kind of said, well, she's older, she's got this mental disorder, and there's really no proof. We can't do much. We have so many other cases. We just can't take our time on one missing person. But I'm telling you, something is there that we're missing. We're missing. So relax. And enjoy your night. And be safe. Take a deep breath. And imagine her alive and well, and understand that things aren't always as they seem. Read between the lines. If you know anything, call the Spokane department, the police department. Let them know what happened. The theories go on and on about her, but those are from ID, and I do believe they are the most telling to what really happened. I think when Randy Riley and James let her go to the bathroom, and she was taking so long that he had to go check on her, and then was like, she's disappeared. She was only 300 yards from her house. You don't think that Mike was waiting in the bushes? Oh, come on. That's the oldest tale in the book. Jealousy, revenge. She's telling her best friend she wants out. She's telling another friend she needs out, is unhealthy. She's saying, not that she's seeing people, that was just to Mike. But to her best friend, she says, Mike is drugging me. He can't seem to get anybody to get her the right medication, quote unquote. That I find very strange. And she's kind of, believing him. I don't think he's a good guy. I think something is up with him. This is my personal opinion. Completely personal. So, I think Mike will never tell the truth. I don't know what he did with the body, but maybe she will show up someday, at least, so our family can have closure. And thank you for all your support, to your subscribes. I hope you enjoyed this very interesting disappearance of this young lady. I will leave pictures of her. She's absolutely gorgeous. She would definitely not leave her son, definitely not leave her cell phone. There's just certain things women don't do. And even if she was going dancing, okay, so she went home with some guy, but she was still alive. If he was gonna kill her, he would have done it then, in his house, not in public, as a storage unit. Come on. And then they left the storage unit. She was alive then. So the only time that she never came back and was never seen again was when she went up on the hill, just a few yards from her home, that she shared with Mike. And him being so focused on stalking that car, finding out where she is, and catching her in the act, makes me believe that he was just waiting somewhere close by, and she just happened to walk into the hornet's nest. world. And be kind to each other. If you see something strange, please pursue it. If you feel something strange, like somebody's drugging you, get away from them. Make up whatever excuse you have. Go stay with your sister, brother, your parents. Do something. Because your instincts are usually right. I had a friend that was a private detective, and he said 99%,